Well, I know you've worked with Dexter Fletcher before, the director. So did he just call you up and say, "Come on, let's do Rocketman"?
We were actually working on Bohemian
Yeah.
Rhapsody together, and he was just like, "We're going to do this film." And so we just, even when we were shooting that, we were talking about Rocketman, and it was almost a sort of distraction from Bohemian Rhapsody. So he was like very excited about it, and you know, he was so interested in doing it. So we finished that off, and then we carried on talking, and it was just, you know, so natural that we were going to do it, and you know, it's an exciting project, and we had such fun, you know, doing it and chatting about it.
Mm-hmm. Were you ready to go from like one iconic, you know, musician / rock band to another?
I mean, absolutely. And I think, you know, for me, it was Queen are fantastic, and I loved Bohemian Rhapsody. But, you know, when I got pitched Rocketman, you know, it was Sir Elton John. He's so incredible. You know, most people have an Elton John favorite song, or a few songs, or 10 songs, or 20. You know, it's like he's iconic, and he's an incredibly flamboyant dresser. And I think, you know, it's sort of any costume designer's dream to reimagine what Elton wore, really.
What's your favorite Elton song?
That's I mean, I was just saying, I did I used to work in a town called Newcastle, which is, I don't know, 5 hours from London, and I used to drive up there with my wife, and we used to listen to Tiny Dancer and make up dance routines. It's amazing. You know, but it is so difficult to actually have your favorite song.
It's true.
Because you go, oh, Tiny Dancer, oh, you know, Honky Cat, oh, and you know, you go from one to the other to the other. So there is this greatest hits album out at the moment, and you know, I was listening to it when we were shooting Rocketman, and it was just like hit after hit after hit after hit. So it's very difficult, but I do love Tiny Dancer.
This movie, unlike unlike Bohemian and like some other like straightforward biopics, like Rocketman is a surreal musical fantasy. So how did that liberate you from having to, you know, maybe like replicate costumes like to the exact detail?
I think one of the reasons that I wanted to do it, because I had just finished Bohemian Rhapsody, which was fantastic, and we slavishly reproduced the exact Freddie and the band's clothing. And I think, you know, when I was chatting to Dexter, it was like, you know, look, we're going to rip up the idea of what a biopic is, and we're going to make it our film. It's a, you know, it's a fantasy musical, you know, musical fantasy, and I had complete carte blanche to reimagine, you know, what Elton wore. And I think that's, for me, it was like the most important thing was that Elton liked what I was doing, and it was that idea that I wanted, when he watched that film for the first time, I wanted him to think, God, I wish I'd had that, or no, I wish I'd had that, or you know, it was so important, and I really did want him to love the clothing. And actually, there's a pair of shoes that appears in the film that are the winged boots, and I got a message from you know, Elton's people to say, oh, you know, he really loves these boots, you know, what? So I had a pair made for him, and on the left leg, on the left foot, I had an E put on the right foot, a J. So now they're in his collection.
What more do you need? That's like validation. Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, so that was really good. But yeah, it was fantastic doing it. And we, there were a couple of outfits that I thought were really important to reproduce. One of them being the most iconic, which was the Dodgers outfit. You know, everybody knows from that concert, it's that, you know, the baseball outfit, and it's, you know, it's a really important silhouette. But I thought, you know, we are doing our film, we are doing our Elton. So how can I change it? You know, he used sequins, and he had the mirrored glass, circles on it. So I thought, you know, what are we going to do to make it ours? And I worked very closely with Swarovski. You know, they kindly gave me 1 million crystals. You know,
and you used every single one.
I used every single one. You know, I think there were 240,000 on the Dodgers outfit. And you know what? Even though I'd been, you know, watching this being made and produced. You know, when Taron walked on set, I mean, it was that actual day was incredibly stressful, because I'd only just finished making that outfit, and well, not my team, you know, and so it was right to the deadline, and there's a sequence when he tries to commit suicide, goes into the pool, gets brought out, gets put on a gurney, and then he was just going to appear at the Dodger Stadium, and then Dexter, in his wisdom, said, "Oh, you know, I'm going to change it. I'm going to completely change it. What we're going to do is we're going to shoot it in silhouette. He's going to come off the gurney. They're going to take off his outfit, and then we're going to put the Dodgers, you know, suit on, and you know they're going to zip it up. And you know, anyone that works with zips, notoriously, you know, they can just snag.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not just one take. There's like 10 or 20 takes, and I was like, Dexter, you can't do this. You know,
crystals.
What? No, it's just what happens. We've only got one of them. What happens if that zipper snags? And I was like, it was so nerve-wracking. Anyway, we did the whole sequence, and it was great. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's no problem. Then he gets into the suit, and then he like strides on stage, and it's a really heavy. It took 2 people to actually carry. There was so many crystals on it. Anyway, so he jumps up on the piano and puts his arm up. And then because it was only finished the day before, one of the seamstresses had actually only just tacked it, so it rips under the arm. I'm like, oh no, what's happening? Anyway, it all got solved, and I mean, even though I just think everybody in the crew and the cast they just gasped when they saw it, because that sort of reflection from all those crystals, it was mind blowing. So anyway, that's.
And it looked incredible on film.
Thank you very much.
So.
It was fun to do.
Well, you also used the crystals in the Devil outfit.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
I love that costume because I love because it's the first one we see him in. It opens the film, but he goes into rehab with it, or like that, the AA meeting. And I love the winged silhouettes, like the heart shape and like the heart glasses, because it's kind of like he's like learning how to like love himself. He's like searching for like forgiveness for himself. So can you talk about like how you've
answered it for me?
Oh, okay.
Because it opens the film and it sort of ends the film and it goes throughout the film. I thought it was very important. I think it was the first thing we shot as well. So I just thought, there's something very important about this outfit. And obviously he's in rehab, and he's got his addictions, and he's being a devil. He's being really obnoxious and irascible, but at the same time he sits there, amongst the other patients, and he talks to his little, his younger self, and he's there. Basically, he needs love. It's about his redemption, and so even though he's dressed as the devil, as you say, the wings make a heart shape. The actual headpiece is in the shape of a heart, and obviously the heart-shaped glasses. So that's what he's really striving for. But that was really fun to do. There's a scene that actually got cut from the film that he meets Elvis, and the suit is sort of based on a sort of that 70s Vegas Elvis with the big collars and the bell sleeves and the bell trousers. So that was sort of the basis for it, and then obviously. I created the horns and what happened for that one was that as he is in rehab, he's sort of bearing his soul, and it's the idea that the costume had to sort of break down as well. There's a great sequence where he's walking along the corridor and the crystals are falling off and the feathers are falling off. So because originally it was going to be just one. But we sort of split it with a jacket and a sort of salopette style suit, and then obviously the horns break off, and these were all added afterwards. So yeah, I mean that was really, and that again, every single crystal was put on by hand, every single crystal, and there were I think 150,000 on that one. So it took it sort of took a small team a week to do that.
Yeah. How much did that one weigh?
Not as heavy as the Dodgers, but it was very heavy.
It wasn't all over like the Dodgers.
No,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
No, it was just for Taron. I mean, Taron is incredible. He's an amazing person, but his energy and his performance really added to that. And you probably all live in California, so you're used to lovely weather, but in the UK it pretty much rains even in summer. We have one day a year where it's just summer, and but unfortunately that year, that when we shot it, not this summer, the summer before, it was the hottest year on record. And he's in this lycra outfit, and he's got to dance, he's got to move around. So he was incredible. He really was incredible. So I have to thank him for putting in that performance. And
he could have gotten heat stroke in that.
Yeah, he was. What happened was in between takes he'd had to take it off, and there was this room where he cooled down, and he'd go and stand in it just like this, and just really cool down. So there's some good on-set photos of that stuff. So
you need to Instagram those.
I've got them in my back pocket, and I'm gonna release them slowly.
Okay. I really like how the clothes kind of reflected his Elton's arc throughout the film, because obviously it starts when he's a kid in the 50s, and it's it's very prim and proper, kind of buttoned up, and then 60s he's just kind of getting started, but the 70s is when it really blows up, and his clothes are just wild, extravagant. He meets John Reed and things go crazy, and then he ODs and goes to rehab in the 80s, and then you kind of tone it down a little bit with the clothes. So how did you go about reflecting his journey in the clothes?
I mean, I think you just have to look at reference to sort of understand that journey. But I think color was very important to me for the film in general, whether it be the background or Elton or the other. We had, I think, 5,000 crowd or something like that over the whole film. We had over 100 speaking parts, and then there was just Elton's costumes, which I think we produced 80 outfits for him. So I think color was very, very important. In the 50s, I wanted to have color throughout the film, but there was different sort of shades, and obviously in the 50s there was a muted color, and the same with the 60s. I wanted to draw that color out, and then we get into the 70s, which was more primary, and then in the 80s it was sort of more saturated and more neon, and I think that was definitely his arc, and also his shape as well. The idea that Elton's weight fluctuated quite a bit through his life, and we might be shooting in the morning a 70s scene, and in the afternoon an 80s scene. So it was quite important, and I think throughout the whole film, silhouette was very, very important to me, and so I tried to reflect his sort of weight gain and his svelte body in the 70s through the silhouettes. I started to increase the shoulder sizes, nip in the waist, or the trousers were heavier, or all of that. So it was quite an important thing to get that across, because we didn't do fat suits or anything like that. It was just Taron and his performance, and these silhouettes that I used.
Mm-hmm. So what are you working on now?
Well, I've just finished doing an adaptation of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which is, it's an amazing book, and obviously Hitchcock. It was Hitchcock's first film that he shot in Hollywood, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, and that's got Lily James, who's amazing to dress. She's such a nice lady, and it's got Armie Hammer, who's incredible. He's like a man mountain. Honestly, but you know what? He's incredible to dress, and one of the most charming people you could ever meet. And Kristen Scott Thomas, who is,
oh my God, yeah.
So she's so
Queen.
beautiful, yeah. And she plays Mrs. Danvers, the Ice Maiden, and she's extraordinary. She has got to do something next, because she is unbelievable at film. And a guy called Sam Riley, who I've worked with on Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and a film about Joy Division called Control. So I've just finished that,